Hi, I'm Natalie Jill, fat loss expert turned lifestyle and high performance coach. When odds are stacked against us, how do we shift and create everything from nothing? How do we level up when we aren't feeling it yet or have had a big setback? And how do we adjust quickly when life throws us major curveballs? On this podcast, I do what I do best, taking complicated information that is relevant to us now and breaking it down simply with actionable steps you can implement to level up your own life. I also regularly interview some of the most inspiring and courageous men and women on the planet who at their worst learned how to achieve success greater than they ever dreamed possible, leveling up, creating everything from nothing. If you are new here, I encourage you to go back and listen from episode 1 for the full transformative experience. Bullied in school for being the ugly duckling, Ashley Hann was led to severe anxiety and the need for perfection. After diving into deep internal work, she learned that the need for external validation was not the way that she wanted to live. After breaking through that, she faced the ultimate betrayal. She learned her best friend was now dating the man she had just ended a relationship with. Knowing that the only way out of the pain she was experiencing was through, she committed to going deeper into that pain to understand where it was all coming from. Through the work, she healed, she forgave, and she stepped into her power in a major way. Today, Ashley is a branding and marketing strategist, best-selling author and speaker, and a mission-driven entrepreneur who helps coach other women into their powerful place. Join in today and learn exactly how Ashley Hann leveled up and created everything from nothing. Today on Leveling Up, I'm here with my friend Ashley Hann, and she today is an online brand strategist and women's coach. And if you were to meet her for the first time right now, you would think, oh my gosh, who is this drop dead supermodel? Like, she looks like this drop dead gorgeous supermodel. And you would just think that she's had this easy life, honestly, because of her looks. I know that sounds really funny to some people, but a lot of you will get that. But she really is that pretty from the inside out too, but people tend to judge. So I was really wanting to have this conversation with her because she's been through a lot in her life, and how she showed up, how she's handled it has really shaped her and made her such a powerful brand strategist and a powerful women's coach. So I can't wait to dive into her story today. Thank you so much, Ashley, for being here.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited. This is going to be a fun episode.
So Ashley, take us back, because I want to start with looks, which might sound very surface level to people, but it's really one of those obvious things because you truly do look like a movie star. And I know you've heard this before, like you're gorgeous on the outside. And what's funny is you said to me that you grew up an ugly duckling. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you. You're so sweet. I just love you. So yes, no one would ever expect this. And this is why it's so important to really dig deep with people and ask people questions before we make judgments about them. Growing up, I was a quote unquote an ugly duckling. So I was made fun of and bullied a lot based on my appearance. So I had a lot of, first off, I was super awkward looking because I was super skinny. And when I say skinny, I mean, I was called toothpick. I was called parallel lines. People wouldn't call me by my name. They would just say, hey, skinny. I would get prank phone calls to my house saying, hey, Ashley, Burger King just opened up around the corner. You should grab yourself a burger, or maybe 6, haha, and then like hang up on me. I was put on this nasty junior high. I don't know if anyone here remembers Xanga. It was like a fad, like MySpace. And there was a gossip blog that was created for my junior high school. And there was a whole post just about Ashley. She's anorexic. She's bulimic, eat a pizza for Christ's sake, like all this stuff. And I remember just reading it and like really, I had no confidence. I was super insecure. And it really wasn't until I started blossoming my last year of high school. So up until then, I was awkward looking. I was wearing kids' jeans and kids' clothes until my last year of high school. Like,
what does that do to you as a teenager or preteen? Because I know a lot of kids go through that awkward stage, but what does it do to you being bullied? And I know some people listening were bullied for opposite reasons, like they were overweight or something different. But talk to me about the psychology of like what happens when that's happening in your life.
Yeah. And so it just goes to show you that one way or the other, whether they're bullying you for being overweight or underweight, it's still creating the same effect. And that effect for me was I felt like I couldn't face anyone. I couldn't face life. I would eat lunch in the girls' bathroom stall just
Wow.
so that I didn't have to face that rejection. And I didn't have any. It's so funny when my mom heard me talk about this on a podcast for the first time, she was like, I had no idea. Why didn't you talk to me? I had no idea you were going through that. My dad, same thing. I had no idea you were going through that. And I didn't feel, I never spoke to them. I would just come home crying every day. I would come home crying. There was parts where I was suicidal in latter half of junior high school and in the beginning of high school, where I used to cut my wrists. And I mean, I was in a very dark place throughout my preteen and teenage years for sure.
Gosh, you know what? You're so lucky thinking that there was no social media then, because I would imagine that would have just exacerbated all that.
Yeah, that's why it's so important. Like, you know, how there's contrast to everything. There's light and dark to everything. Social media, a lot of people will hound on it. Well, what I say is, yes, darkness exists. It's even more important then to be the light. You know, to make content, create content like this so that we can overpower the other crap that's out there. And that's why I love seeing light workers like you and other people in our circle that are out there creating and sharing tools for young, you know, the youth that are on these social platforms to learn how to deal with this stuff.
So when you were a kid and you had this happening, what did you think of yourself? Like, did you look at yourself going, what's wrong with me? Or did you think, I don't see what they're seeing? Like, what story did that create about who you were?
Oh man, girl, I used to look in the mirror and I hated who I saw. I remember going to the mirror and taking my thighs and pressing my thighs out and imagining what it would look like. You know, when you press from the back, and it makes them. So I would do that and just hold them there. And just like, maybe if I hold them here, hold my hands here long enough and press my thighs out, they'll just stay.
Wow.
You know, I would do that with my arms, because my arms, they used to call me spaghetti arms, noodle arms. So I used to pick myself apart in the mirror. Sometimes there was days, I just spoke about this in my recent podcast episode, is I used to cut school on the days where I was really feeling insecure about my looks and my appearance.
When you said that you were suicidal and you used to cut your wrist, like cutting like that is what you used to do, or you cut your wrist like you tried to kill yourself?
So, you know, what's interesting is when I was cutting my wrist, I remember, so I'm really queasy. Like I have, to this day, I am, you show me a paper cut and I'm getting lightheaded. I'm like, I need to sit down. I've always been that way. So I remember the times where I would try to cut myself, and when I started doing it and I started bleeding, I would pass out. I've passed out more times than I can count. Like when I started my period, I passed out. Like I've just have a very weak stomach. But yeah, like when I was doing that, I would say it was half for attention. Like I did want my parents to almost know how much pain I was going through, but I was too scared to tell them. But then the other part was I was miserable. I didn't feel accepted. I felt just like a mess, and I didn't feel happy. I was sad all the time.
Yeah. When you said that you started to blossom towards the end of high school, did you know that, or like, how did you start viewing yourself then? Because where I'm going with this is sometimes if people are overweight their whole life, even when they're super fit and healthy, they still look at themselves as overweight. Did you go through that? Like where externally people are noticing you, but you were not feeling that way. Like it wasn't catching up.
Oh yeah, totally. There's actually a word for that. It's called mirror, something, or image dysmorphia or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, image dysmorphia. That's what it is. Yes, 100%. I remember when it was so distorted, my view versus what other people would tell me. I remember the first time that a guy like said I was hot, and I was like, me? What? No, huh? Did he just call me hot? And then when I had a boyfriend who then commented on my butt and was like, Ashley, you have a butt. And I was, by the way, another nickname I was called was bony butt. So I had no butt. And so when he said that, I was like, what? Wait, really? And it was like, I could not see it. It took a while for me to actually see what he saw. And still to this day, sometimes it like creeps back up on me. It's a very interesting thing because you're used to a certain perception of yourself.
So what's interesting, and I've heard this from other friends too, is when you are pretty on the outside, people are also mean about that. Have you experienced that? Like, talk to me a little bit about that, because it's such a strange thing. Like, you're bullied for not looking a certain way. And then if you go to the extreme and you look great, you're bullied for that.
Okay. Perfect example. Remember when I said I was put on that gossip site when I was in junior high school? Fast forward, I'm in college and I'm now considered quote unquote hot, right? Like I have guys on crushes on me. And I finally felt I'll never forget the first moment I actually felt acceptance based on my looks. And we can talk about that. But I was then put on, have you ever heard of thedirty.com? Okay. You probably don't want to check it out, but maybe some listeners have heard of it. It's a very popular gossip site.
Okay.
I was put on there for being, she's, a tan, anorexic, blah, blah, like same stuff.
Gosh,
and it was like
mean. People
like
are so
fake
mean.
and bake, fake and bake.
Yeah.
Wannabe, like I don't even remember honestly the stuff, but I remember reading it and I bawled my eyes out. It was like deja vu.
Yeah.
It was the same feeling that I felt when I remember that in junior high school. And then fast forward.
Yeah.
When I finally feel like, okay, finally I feel like I've like some confidence in my appearance, then bam.
Wow.
Hit again.
So listeners, think about this. Like, why are we as humans so mean? Why are we so judgmental and mean? It's almost like, unless you're just plain, just average in the middle, like people probably judge for that actually too. So but it's like, why are we all so mean to each other? It's like, we're all just trying to get through life. Right. And it's interesting, like you're bullied for being a certain way. You work hard or you don't work hard. And then you all of a sudden start looking a way that you think is accepted. And then you're bullied for that.
That goes to show you, though, that's what I learned through all of this.
Yeah.
Is people judge, period. I mean, I resisted. I don't know about you, but I tried to put, oh no, people aren't going to judge you. I tried to do that self-talk where it's like, oh, people aren't going to judge you. Like, you can't just assume people are going to judge you. That didn't help me, because what we resist persists.
Yes.
And it was happening. People judge. It's a fact of life. As you just said, people do it. Now it's up to us how we want to interpret that judgment and how we want to relate to that judgment. Yes. So what the interesting thing is, when people are judging based off of looks, it is such a surface judgment.
Yes.
And so when you are actually beyond, when you grounded, which by the way, I wasn't, I had a surface worth, as you might call it. Like I put all my worth in my surface, because that was when I finally felt acceptance, was because of my look. That finally happened. I finally felt accepted. I had a girl come up to me and say, hey, you're pretty. We should be friends. I'm like, oh, got it. Because I'm pretty, I get friends. Right.
Wow.
So placing all that value then in something that's so surface, the most temporary aspect of ourselves, the most temporary.
Yeah.
So when we're placing all that value, we're not rooted or grounded. So imagine a tree that's not rooted or grounded is just sitting on the top of the surface of the ground. If a gust of wind comes, that tree falls over. That's how I was, because I was placing all my value in the surface.
Yeah. And there's such a danger in that too, because everybody's going to age. Looks change. It is the most temporary thing. So if you're gorgeous for 10 years of your life, it's like, that is not a permanent thing. So it's interesting that you connect to that. So talk to me about relationships. Did every relationship feel surface level to you then? Like you couldn't trust with that, or like what was your friendships like?
Oh yeah. Because like I said, I only felt acceptance because of my looks. I felt like my personality and who I actually wasn't actually good enough. And so what I would try to do is I was a copycat. I would just try to copy and be a chameleon and try to fit in by being someone and something that I wasn't. As you can imagine, that was exhausting. It was depleting. I felt at the end of the day like crap, and I didn't know why, because I didn't have the tools or emotional intelligence back then to know how that took a toll on me.
Well, you were everything was based on external validation.
Yep, 100%. Yes, external validation all the way. And so then I literally was looking outside me for all of this approval, and guess what? The whole time I rejected myself. I didn't accept myself. I was trying to, the simple fact that I was trying to be someone else shows that I wasn't accepting myself. Therefore, how could I
Yeah.
ever expect someone else to accept who I really was? So I was attracting all these people who
Mhm.
were in alignment with the fake me, not the real me.
Oh my gosh, I can totally relate to that. That's a whole nother conversation that we can have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can completely relate to that. So, okay, so when did you get this awareness that this was an issue?
The issue of placing all my value in my surface.
Yeah, like when
Yeah.
did the light
Yeah.
bulb kind of go like, okay, I've got to
Oh,
build
yeah.
something else?
So you and I both went through a very similar, we went through the same training, exact same training. And so that training, just want you to imagine, I walk into that training and I am insecure. Okay.
Yeah.
I pick myself apart in the mirror. I pick myself, I'm being fake, all this stuff. Right. But at the time I did not know I was being fake. Remember?
Right. Oh my God. That's what I want everyone to really hear right now. It's so funny because when you look at somebody that's like this, like you think they're all perfect and gorgeous, there is an underlying, usually deep rooted what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And so I get there and there is a feedback process. The feedback I got was, you're fake, surface, superficial, and holier than thou.
Wow.
Holier than thou. And those were the ones that like really, and stuck up. So, which is similar to holier than thou. So stuck up, holier than thou, all those things. So the crazy part is that was my feedback, yet I didn't feel holier than anyone. I felt like I had to prove myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because remember, we're walking projections. So because we don't feel good enough about ourselves, we're making people who are coming into contact with us not feel good enough to talk to us. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because we're projecting that onto them. And so that's why I remember I would go to bars and I was like, I felt like I looked good. No guys would approach me. Why? Because I was unapproachable. You see what I'm saying? I was projecting the fact that I was scared of them not approaching me. So then they wouldn't approach me.
So you're projecting that, and what you're probably making up in your head before you had this awareness is that I don't look good enough. Or it goes back to the old thing. And I see that cycle with people. So like you're thinking you don't have this awareness that you're not approachable. There's this wall in front of you, any of that people aren't comfortable talking to you. Instead, it's like, I just don't look good enough, which puts you in a loop of what do I need to do to have a better outside appearance?
Yes, you nailed it. You nailed it on the head. Exactly. That is exactly what happened.
So my gosh, so for people listening, I have so many more things I want to ask you, but what is the answer to that? Like, because there's somebody listening that either they're struggling with that or their kid is like, I mean, and you guys, if you're rolling your eyes, please don't roll your eyes at this. And because this is actually like a real thing, because there's no difference between being bullied or having insecurities around being overweight or being not attractive or being pretty or it's all the same thing. It's all the same bucket. It really is.
Yep. Yeah, it absolutely is. And so when first off, I just want to say, we can't fix or change something until we're aware of it, right?
Yes.
So we can't fix something that we don't know exists. So that's always the first step. That awareness piece is huge. I was unaware. So there's no way I could have, thank goodness. I mean, I'm so grateful that I went into that training, because otherwise I would have just been walking around unconscious and creating the same self-fulfilling prophecy. So the first thing is awareness. And there's, as you know, right now, which I'm so excited about, is there's so much opportunity for that, to create awareness. There's so many, you know what I mean? And that's the beautiful part about where we are right now as a society as a whole. And when there's two big things for me that helped me along my journey. The first one is, which I alluded to earlier, was accepting judgment. Mm-hmm. So accepting the fact that judgment is going to happen, like accepting that as just fact. It's just fact, right?
Yep.
And really I would write down the judgments that I was scared to get, or the judgments that I got. And then I would ask myself, this is Byron Katie's work, can I know with 100% certainty that that's 100% true about me? Right? So I would ask myself that, and I would really start to question these judgments, and were they true about me? And a lot of times, the reason why they affect us so much is because we are scared that they're true about us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Which is something wouldn't affect you at all if someone walked up to me and, you know, I say this analogy a lot, is like called me a blue frog, I'd be like, okay, I'm not scared
It
of a
wouldn't
blue
phase
frog.
you, but they
It wouldn't
say something
faze
that's
me.
already an insecurity and you're like, wow, that hurt, or that, and you want to get defensive.
Exactly. So then it's something to look at. So I started to look at exactly that. I started to look at those triggers when people would say things about me that really triggered me. I would look at that exact thing and I would challenge it myself. And I would literally look at myself and I would ask myself, is that actually true about me? Am I scared that that's true about me? And then what can I, moving forward, how can I accept and love this part about me? Right. So for example, another thing that I got a lot, and this doesn't have to do with looks or appearance, but self-righteousness was a feedback that I got. So when someone first called me that, well, of course I was self-righteous. I was like, what? Me? No. Like, what are you talking about? I was pissed. I didn't even hear anything the rest of the night. I like didn't hear anything else. I just only heard that. And then so when I got back, again, if we look at triggers as opportunities to go within and heal, then I went in and later on that night, I went and I journaled about it. And it was really powerful for me to actually look at, okay, well, I was obviously scared that that's true about me. And so how can I shift that? And that was a very powerful thing. And the second thing I was going to say is that I did that's really powerful is I actually did this rewiring process where I wrote out all of these limiting beliefs about myself, which some of them are judgments, right, that people have placed, but they're my limiting beliefs and stories. And I did a rewiring process of first figuring out where the source is of that belief, like where it came from. And which a lot of them came from mom for me. And the second thing was I actually created, once I realized that wasn't from me, since when we identify the source, we're able to separate ourselves from it. It's, hey, I am not this thing. This thing was created from this experience or this, event, right? And so then you can separate yourself from it and say, hey, I'm not that thing. That was just a thing that happened in my life that had me believe I am this thing. And then I created a new belief and I started repeating those new belief mantras all the time. Like,
so you basically turned your, what I call false assumed truths into better affirmations. So you rewired it to a newer affirmation that you started training yourself with. I love that. And I love the step of where did the source come from, because then you have power over it because you can then separate it from you.
Yes, 100%. It's one of my most powerful practices that I still do to this day.
So good. So you had a big awareness. Now I'm going to move the story along a little bit because I know something else about you that I really want to dive into for a minute. So as you're figuring out this new version of you, and it's not fake anymore because now you're wanting deeper connections, you go through a bigger transformation in your life because you, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you now have like a really solid best friend. You've got a new relationship. You have a boyfriend. Talk to us about that. What happened there that completely shook you up?
Yeah. So to be clear too, both relationships, the friendship, I had a best friend for 6 years, and this is my ex-boyfriend. So my boyfriend at the time, both of those relationships were established and created before I did that work.
Interesting. So they met you in that other Ashley zone.
Yeah, that's when they met me. Yeah.
Okay.
And actually the really interesting piece is, so that friendship, we did go deep together. Of course, I had some of the deepest, most profound moments with her. However, we had probably more than half of our friendship was like we were being surfaced together.
Yes.
We were seeking external validation together.
Gosh, I can so relate to that, Ashley, because my friends now are completely different than they were 5 years ago. Like I have a completely different group. I have a few friends from like 20 years ago that have still maintained, but I have this whole, and when those friendships were falling apart 5 years ago, I didn't understand it. Now I'm grateful they did because I love what's in my life now. So that's interesting that you just brought that up.
Yeah. And when I want to say really quickly about that is, and ladies listening, when you become, I say, magnetically confident, magnetic, what happens is you become polarizing. When you're so rooted and grounded in who you are, aka confident, when you're so grounded, rooted, and confident in who you truly are, what your values are, then you actually repel the people who aren't in alignment with that or you. and you attract the ones, you become super attractive to the ones that are. So a lot of us are afraid to be our true selves because we're worried that people won't like us. Well, I'll say this, there is going to be people who won't like you, period. And there's going to be people who are so attracted to you because you're finally freaking being your authentic self.
That's so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being your authentic self is not just telling a story. It's like truly stepping into that, which is so cool. Okay. So talk to me about what that was like. You had a boyfriend and this ex-boyfriend now, and a best friend that were kind of with you through this whole transformation. So what did that create? Like, were they going through that with you at the same time?
Yeah. So she was in it with me. She was in she did the whole, it was a 4-month long training, and she did the whole thing with me. He ended up doing it after I did. And what was interesting is, as you know, when you go through something so deep and profound, you literally, first off, the first half, you're raw. You're literally stripped raw. Okay. All those barriers you're holding up, they've been, I'm talking explosion, blown apart. Everything you thought was true, shattered. Okay. So I was going through that while I'm best friends with her, while I'm dating him. I'm having a metamorphosis of self during that time. And there were things I remember that came up, and this is interesting. I bet there's some listeners who can relate to this. When you love someone so much and you care about them so much, we can make excuses for them. We can vouch for them. Even though we see something that you're like, wait a minute, that's not quite right. We can actually, because we love them so much, we're like, oh no, but it's because of this. Like, no, like it's because of this, right? And I was in that place because while I was having this metamorphosis of self and redefining my values and my worth and all these things, there were some major red flags that came up with both of them. I ignored them. And that was a huge lesson for me. And
when you say red flags in what?
So you want me to be specific?
Well, just like what I'm curious, because I know where this is going. So where it's like where this was devastating for you, but when you say red flags in how they should be being friends with you, or what do you mean by that? I guess just more general.
So for example, integrity is a core value of mine. Integrity. And there were some moments where both separately were completely out of integrity, and I knew about it and I overlooked it. And that's one example of one that I remember was a major red flag for me, certain things that they each did separately. And but I let it go, and I just kind of was like, whatever, and I brushed it off. And that is a core value of mine. So I was actually betraying myself by brushing it off and doing that.
And I think we do that a lot with relationships. And then when we're upset that a relationship dissolved later, if we look back, there usually was things like that.
Indicators.
Yes. Indicators.
Yeah.
So what happened here? Because I know you ended up breaking up, and then you always said I had a double breakup. Can you speak a little bit into that and what that created for you?
Yeah. So it was a very, very tough time in my life. This was I would say the hardest breakup that I had to grow through was not with him. It was with her. And the reason why is because she started seeing him behind my back. So my best friend at the time started seeing my ex-boyfriend behind my back for about 2 months and didn't tell me. And, I was living with this man. I thought he could have been my forever man at the time.
And she knew this. She knew that you thought that about him. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, she was in the relationship with me. She, you know how it is, ladies, right? You have I'm talking sister.
Yes.
And every time that he, hurt my feelings, or I was in my, rackets, I would go to her. She was always the one. I would go to her house, cry on her shoulder, have lay in her bed all night, cuddle with her. She was the one picking up the pieces whenever I was shattered from the relationship. And it was a very toxic relationship that I was in. So when I finally had the courage to separate from him, almost immediately after, she started seeing him, but I didn't know about it, and it was behind my back. And then she finally told me, like I said, 2 months later, and I was in shock.
Yeah.
You know, I remember just sitting there. She told me over the phone she wouldn't meet me in person. And I remember just sitting there, and I couldn't even, there was no word. My throat chakra was just blocked.
Complete shock.
I couldn't.
Ashley, how do you even get over something like that? How do you get past something like that? Because I'm just sitting here listening to you and like imagining what that would feel like. And I mean, how do you get on from something like that?
Oh man, it's been a freaking process. And I'll tell you, I'm in a mastermind group right now, and the ladies were talking about this, and I was sharing with them how I did it, because some of them are going through that. More women than we know go through this.
Yeah.
And and so what you must, here's the biggest thing that I learned. And I knew this concept, I just applied it in a whole different way. Remember when I said before, what we resist persists?
Yes.
So I needed to accept, because that, you know what the shock factor is? The shock factor is, wait a minute, no, it can't be. It can't be. It can't be. It can't be, right? So you're almost in this like denial, and you feel like you don't want to accept it, right? So I was in that for a while. Like I was in that for a while, and also anger and rage. I mean, when I finally stood up from getting off the phone with her, I took the mirror, the picture frame of us next to me, and I slammed on the ground. It shattered in pieces, and I just let out a primal scream.
Yeah.
Like loud. And here's how the process I went through to heal this. And it was no small feat, I'll tell you that. Mm-mm. I needed to let myself cry when I needed to cry. I had to let it out. I had to, whenever I would try to stuff it in, it would eat at me, and it would eat at me, and then I would explode. So I learned that, hey, Ashley, when you miss her, when you start to whether it's whatever it is, that emotion that you're feeling, let it out, cry. If it's anger, I started boxing. I started boxing because that helped me. I remember when I was punching, it helped me so much with letting out the anger that I felt towards her, and that feeling of being quote unquote betrayed.
So and Ashley, then sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I'm just curious about this. I think when we go through pain and hurt, especially a breakup with a boyfriend, a friend, it's natural tendency to want to vent about it to others and like complain and vent and get people like on your side validating. And I know you really didn't do that. You were really great about not making, you had moments of being a human, but you weren't out there like making a big scene about that. Was that something challenging for you? Because I really respected that with you.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say about that is I did feel a lot of anger towards her. Luckily though, I had done a lot of work up until that point. And I went through that, like I said, that 4-month training, and I knew that I needed to be a stand for what I wanted to see. And I know that at the end of the day, if I were to go out and bash her, that would actually hurt me.
Yeah. And you didn't at all. I thought I was really impressed with that. You didn't. Okay. So you did that. So the crying when you felt it, the boxing, and then what was the next?
Yeah. And then I needed to face her, not actually her. Okay. I want to be clear. So I put myself in a training room, and she, I'm putting quotations, was standing in front of me. Someone was standing in for her. It wasn't really her. And that was, oh man, I was shaking, and I felt first so much anger, and I felt like frozen. And there was a guidance happening, so voice was happening and guiding me through it as I was looking at this woman in the face who was standing in for her. And at the end of it, I had a choice. I had a choice to hug her, or had a choice to walk away. Oh, I'm getting chills all over my body as I say this. And I chose to hug her.
Wow.
And in that moment, I remember I was hugging her, and I would just start bawling. It was this magnificent release.
Wow.
I needed to forgive her. And most of all, like what people need to understand about forgiveness, that this shifted everything for me, guys. What I needed to learn, that forgiveness is not about the other person. It's my freedom. If I refuse to forgive this person, or I'm not letting myself forgive them, then I'm harboring the resentment. That lives in my body. I'm the one dealing with that every day. So when I finally forgave her, I remember this feeling of like, like this just freedom and liberation from this inside toxicity that I was dealing with on a day-to-day. And that was the liberating, defining moment for me. And then I wrote her a letter. Once I knew, by the way, I knew that eventually I was going to write her a letter. I'm a letter writer. That's my favorite way to communicate.
Sure.
And get my thoughts out on paper. But I told myself I would not write to her when I was feeling emotional or reactive. I had to wait until I finally had forgiven her and felt grounded and in a place of love. It had to be a love letter.
Okay.
Had to be a love letter. And I did that. And I wrote her a love letter. And that again was like the final piece that I had no expectation. I wrote it to write something from my heart to hers.
It's amazing.
And that was it. And it was so powerful.
Do you feel free from all of this now? Like when you look at them now, what do you harbor? Is it just neutral? Do you still have hate? Do you have love for them? Like what do you feel now?
No, yeah. So it's a really good question. It took me so long to get to this point. Like, I want to be clear, like it really took me a while until I could look at their stuff and not feel that like the sting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now I feel like it was all so divine, and I look at them and I see they're just great for each other. And I'm not saying that in a way of like, oh yeah, they deserve each other. I'm saying that as in truly they are great for each other, and I'm happy for them.
You see it from honestly, a very different perspective now.
Yeah. If I was invited to their wedding, if that happened, I would go. And I would support them. And here's the thing though, our friendship ended, what is that? 2 or 3 years ago. Okay. So I'm telling you, it's taken a long time to get to this point. It has. But I'm genuinely at this place now where I feel peace. The only thing that does come up from time to time, I'll be completely vulnerable and honest, is I do effing miss her sometimes. Like I miss the friendship we shared and being able, I don't have that woman yet. I want to be clear. And something I'm really calling in this year, upcoming year, is I am calling in a best friend, because I do miss that and what I shared with her, that bond.
That's amazing. I love hearing you talk about this, because it's like, you don't miss the relationship with the guy. You miss the friendship is the one that you really miss. It's so interesting. Yeah. Wow. It's really powerful. And I definitely, I commend you for how you handled that and how much you've grown from that, and how you've really, you almost look at it as a blessing now. Like you've learned so much and grown so much because of that.
So much. I've completely redefined my values and my friendship vision.
Yeah, that's incredible. Okay. So how do you go from all this stuff you've been through? Like you've been through so many different things, so many different journeys, like to now you're actually like helping others with their story and their brand and their, like, how does that even transition into that? How did that happen?
Pain to purpose. So same reason why I wrote my book was once I had done that 4-month training, I had all these like crazy breakthroughs. I was like, I need to share my story, and I need to share these tools and lessons I've learned along the way. And
what's your book called, Ashley? What's your book?
Magnetic Confidence. And it's on Amazon. If you just type that, it should be the first result that pops up. And so same thing now. So it's so funny, as I evolve, of course, my coaching and what I focus on evolves. And so I've had, different iterations of what I coach and what I really specialize in with women. And, but it really lights my soul on fire to be able to speak to a woman who was where I was. Right. Who felt that lack of confidence, that insecurity, as we talked about in the very beginning of the episode, and having them break through in full love and acceptance of themselves. There's no greater feeling to me than being able to walk a woman through that so they can get to the other side. It's the most transformative thing to witness. I love it.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's almost like these things had to happen to you so they could happen for you to be able to create these things.
100%. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for it, because if none of those things happened for me, I would not have a way to relate to, I couldn't say, oh, I get it. By the way, we didn't talk about this, but I was diagnosed with severe anxiety disorder. as
Oh,
well. So when I was
during all of that happening, or when was that?
that was when I was in junior high school time. So
And
I
how
was
did you
taking,
cope with that when that happened?
well, in high school and college, I was popping meds. So I was just taking anxiety medication all the
Like a
time.
Xanax type of thing.
Yeah, I don't even remember what it was called, to be honest, because I
Yeah.
haven't since it's been what, 5 years now. So I
Yeah.
haven't popped a single, so I don't remember what it was called,
Yeah.
but anyway, so I'm able to speak to women. For example, anxiety is a big one because I had really severe social anxiety. Remember, I was teased and taunted, so I ate lunch in the bathroom. So I had tons of anxiety. So I'm able to speak to these women that have that anxiety and lack of confidence, and and I'm able to relate to them. They feel like, oh, this woman understands me, and they see me as who I am today, and they're like, if she can do it, so can I. And I
Totally.
want to be that light for them.
That's so amazing. I love this whole transition. And I love that people look at you now and say, wow, if she did it, I can, versus the old Ashley, which you didn't even realize you were putting them off. It's like, it's just like
Yeah,
all this stuff kind of had to happen to let you step into what you've done now and what you're helping others with right now. It's really such an incredible
100%.
story. I love that. Wow. So much and so much hope for people. I have a few more questions for you. Like, what if you could talk to the girl, two different girls? If you could talk to the girl that was being bullied in school, what would you want her to know right now?
Oh, I would say, sweetheart, right now, more than ever, what matters is how you view yourself, how you
Mm.
accept yourself. Please, please look in the mirror and see the gift that you are, and know that all these words and all these rocks that are thrown at you right now will have no power over you in the future, and it will actually become your platform. So trust, 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 and love yourself above everything else.
So good. And then what would you tell that girl on the phone with your best friend at the time that wanted to shatter the picture and just felt so enraged? What would you tell her?
I would say, you have a beautiful garden, Ashley, and sometimes there are weeds that need to be picked from your beautiful garden so that it
Mm-hmm.
can blossom and grow to what it is today. And so I would say, let go, accept what happened for what it is, and trust that once you do accept it and are able to finally close that door, there will be another door that opens. Have faith.
Yes. And spoiler alert, she's in a very happy relationship now. She's got a great business and new friends. So
Yeah.
things are working right now.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm in such a beautiful relationship with such a conscious, amazing man who really is my king. And it's so cool because, like, right now, for example, I'm in Tulum, and so is he. We've decided, and this is so cool to have the relationship we do, that there's like this trust there where we both need soul retreats. I just did very deep work a couple of days ago, just so you know. So I did some
Okay.
inner child work, and it was very profound. I almost lost my voice, everything else.
Mm.
And so I am on a soul retreat, and so is he. So I'm staying in a tree house in Tulum.
Oh, I
It's
love it.
so magical here, and he's staying on an oceanfront tent. Like
Oh,
it's like,
wow.
yeah. And so he's over there, and I'm over here. And we're spending the 4 nights just so I can be with myself and hold that space for myself. As you know, when you do that work and you're in the action, the popcorn pops afterwards, right? All
Yeah.
the stuff pops up. The breakthroughs start happen afterwards, especially if you're an analyzer like me. A lot of it happens after the
Yeah.
action because you're like in your head in the moment, right?
So good. And
So
you
yeah.
met in Bali, didn't you? Did you tell me that you
Yep.
met in Bali? So
Yeah,
were
we
you
met in
both
Bali.
working on yourselves separately in Bali and that's how you met?
We've been both. Yeah, he's been. What's so crazy is when I met him, is he was also on his spiritual journey. So he was crazy enough, and he'll share this. We're actually going to make a podcast at some point to share all this stuff. He was calling in his queen. So he was doing the work to call
Wow.
in his queen, and doing a lot of deep work around that. But yeah, we met in Bali. We were actually both speaking at an event. So he was the keynote speaker, and
Okay.
I was one of the panelists. And so that's where we met
What a
originally.
great, I love that. I love that. All right, Ashley, where can people find you? Because I know that they're going to want to learn more. They're going to want to know all the things about you. Where are you most active on social and where can they find you?
Instagram for sure. That's where I hang out. It's ashley.hann, Ashley Hann. And my website's ashleyhann.com. Nice and easy. I also have a podcast like you do. It's called The Ashley Hann Show.
Yep.
Easy stuff.
And
yeah.
she does, you do beautiful branding and marketing work. I watched you build my friend Jenna's new website. So she does great work with that too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's going to be launching soon.
Okay.
So I'm really excited. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Everyone go check her out. And if you liked this podcast, please share it. Get this inspiration out to other people and tag both Ashley and I so we can see you that you enjoyed it. Thanks, Ashley, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen in as my guest today. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with friends and on social media. I don't advertise this show, so I rely on word of mouth and reviews to get it out in the world. The biggest thank you that you can give me is leaving me a review, and a nice one, I hope, by the way. This is how others find these episodes. If you do leave me a review, be sure to message me at support@nataliejillfitness.com with a screenshot of your review, because I would love to send you a free digital download of my DSR journal as a thank you. And please don't forget to connect with me on social media at Natalie Jill Fit on Instagram and Facebook.